Alrighty, welcome. Welcome to session number 155 of Kevin Reads A Course in Miracles. We are in chapter 19, the attainment of peace, and still in section 4, all right, IV, Roman numeral 4, entitled The Obstacles to Peace. And since it's a very long section, there are subsections to it. So today we are concentrating on subsection B, the second obstacle to peace, right, on page 412 in the text. All right. The second obstacle to peace, the belief the body is valuable for what it offers. Okay, let's just get to it. We said that peace must first surmount the obstacle of your desire to get rid of it. Where the attraction of guilt holds sway, peace is not wanted. The second obstacle that peace must flow across, and closely related to the first, is the belief that the body is valuable for what it offers. For here is the attraction of guilt made manifest in the body and seen in it. So, all right, here is the attraction of guilt made manifest. All right, this in the body, the ego is constantly trying to tell us that guilt is real, the separation is real, that guilt is real, and it proves it to us by, look, you have a body, you're a separate individual. All right, so it makes the guilt manifest in the body. Right? It continually tries to tell us that the body, the form in the world, everything is real. Okay? And Jesus is just telling us to look at it, question it, and eventually realize it's unreality. Right? Nobody's taking anything from you. Right? You won't be sacrificing anything. She's just asking you to look, all right, and decide, is this what you really want? Okay, so let's just move along. Paragraph 2, this is the value that you think peace would rob you of, your body. Right? This is what you believe that it would dispossess and leave you homeless. And it is this for which you would deny a home to peace. This sacrifice you feel to be too great to make, too much to ask of you. Is it a sacrifice or a release? What has the body really given you that justifies your strange belief that in it lies salvation? Do you not see that this is the belief in death? Here is the focus of the perception of atonement as murder. Here is the source of the idea that love is fear. Okay? So he says, what's the body given you? He says, it's actually a strange belief. Okay? Do you not see that this is the belief in death? Okay? Because in a crazy way, the ego's logic is, well, if you died, you lived, right? And that means that you separated from God. You did it. You made it. You were successful in separating from God. Right? And you can prove it because you lived and died. And so death becomes the ultimate proof that you lived. And then, you know, in some places, a lot of places, in the back of people's mind, you know, when I die, I'm going to go to a better place. All right, so I have to do that first in order to atone for whatever the heck it was I did. All right, to get rid of that guilt that I feel, you know. So it says here's the. Do you not see this, the belief in death? Here is the focus of the perception of atonement as murder. Right? So in order to be released from your guilt, you have to be killed. You have to die. Okay? You know, no matter what kills you. People often, you can hear it at wakes and things. God was the one that called you back and all this, So it's like a murder, really. So just look at this, all right? Don't make any false moves, as they say, So here's the source of the idea that love is fear. So it's the source of the idea that God, who is love, should be feared. All right? Oh, here he comes. He's going to kill me. All right? You want to stay away from love because it's going to destroy you. It's going to destroy your body. It's going to dispossess you of your body. So it becomes an obstacle to peace, all right? That the body is valuable, all right, for what it offers. Okay? Paragraph 3. The Holy Spirit's messengers are sent far beyond the body, calling the mind to join in Holy Communion and be at peace. Such is the message that I gave them for you. It is only the messengers of fear that see the body. They look for what can suffer. It is a sacrifice to be removed from. Is it a sacrifice to be removed from what can suffer? The Holy Spirit does not demand you sacrifice the hope of the body's pleasure. It has no hope of pleasure. But neither can it bring you fear of pain. Pain is the only sacrifice the Holy Spirit asks, and this he would remove. Right? So he says the Holy Spirit is not asking you to sacrifice any hope of pleasure. Right? He says because it has no hope of pleasure, the body. Right? It's always just temporary. Right? And Jesus and the Holy Spirit are, their business is reminding us of eternal, infinite pleasure, infinite bliss, happiness. All right? He says, but neither can it bring you fear of pain. All right? Pain is the only sacrifice, in quotes, that the Holy Spirit asks. He says, give up the idea of pain. All right? Because the moment you're in the body, you're subject to pain. All right? Physical, emotional, psychological. It's just, you have both. Moments of pleasure, moments of pain. He says, pain is the only sacrifice the Holy Spirit asks you, and this he would remove. He would remove the pain. He would remove the pain that results from guilt. Right? Because what results from guilt is that, I have to leave my mind and go into this world, into a form. Right? And at times, there's all kinds of pain involved. As we said. All right. If I move to the Holy Spirit's thought system, there is no pain. All right. If I continually reinforce the idea of going to my mind and asking Holy Spirit, Jesus, help me to see. If I join with the Holy Spirit's thought system, there is no pain. Peace is extended, paragraph 4. We'll have to expand on that idea because people get confused, the idea that there is no pain. As long as we see ourselves in a body, right? You know, we might ask the Holy Spirit, help me to see this correctly, thinking that He's going to remove the physical pain, right? What we're talking about here is that no matter what's going on, I can be peaceful, okay? Whether the pain is there or not, the actual physical pain is there or not, right? Because that's how the ego gets in the back door, and it says, oh, you see, you still have that pain. So this praying and this communicating with Jesus is not working, obviously. All right? That's how the Holy Spirit gets in the back. I mean, the ego gets in the back door. All right? So, paragraph 4. Peace is extended from you only to the eternal, and it reaches out from the eternal in you. It flows across all else. The second obstacle is no more solid than the first, for you want neither to get rid of peace nor to limit it. What are these obstacles that you would interpose between peace and its going forth, but barriers you place between your will and its accomplishment? You want communion, not the feast of fear. You want salvation, not the pain of guilt. And you want your Father, not a little mound of clay to be your home. In your holy relationship is your Father's Son. He has not lost communication with him, nor with himself. When you agreed to join your brother, you acknowledged that this is so. This has no cost, but it has release from cost. All right? And he says, peace is extended from you only to the eternal. All right? So you are, in actuality, eternal. And peace is extended basically to itself, to the eternal. All right? And your brother, who looks like an individual, all right, is actually the same as you. All right? He's part of the eternal. He has the eternal in his mind. So that's where the peace goes. It extends to the eternal in his mind. All right? So he says the second obstacle is no more solid than the first. The body that really doesn't matter. We're talking about extending from the mind to the mind. Okay? This is for you want neither to get rid of peace nor to limit it. So you don't want to get rid of peace, the first obstacle, nor to limit it, the second obstacle, the body. Right? That would limit things. You know, you can have some peace, but only, for a little while. The kids are waking up. Whatever it is, the boss just called. You can have peace, but sooner or later something else to do, and it's liable to take you into the detour, into fear. Okay? So he says, for you neither want to get rid of it nor limit it. He goes, what are these obstacles that you would interpose between peace and its going forth, but barriers you place between your will and its accomplishment? All right? It's barriers that you put between your will and its accomplishment. What is it that you want? All right? And he tells you, he reminds you, you want communion. All right? You want that union with eternity, that union with God, that union with the memory of who you are. Okay? You want communion, not the feast of fear. Right? You want salvation. You want that release from the ego, not the pain of guilt. Right? And you want your Father. You want to be with your Creator. It says you want your Father, not a little mound of clay to be your home. You want your Father to be your home. Right? And your holy relationship is your Father's Son. In that relationship, that's where you are. That's where you are realized. Okay? He has not lost communication with him. Right? All right? So your true self has not lost communication with your Father. Okay? Nor with himself. All right? So deep down inside, you actually know who you are. When you agree to join your brother, you acknowledge this is so. Right? So that's the idea of forgiveness. I agree to see my brother correctly. I want to put down whatever I think of him, whatever my ego thoughts are, and I want to ask Jesus for assistance. Help me to see my brother in a different light. I'm tired of attacking. I'm tired of the anger. I'm tired of the fear. All right? I'm willing to see correctly. All right? And it's for my own good. It's for my own good. All right? When you agree to join your brother, you acknowledge that this is so. All those, the idea of your will, you acknowledge that this is so. This is what you want. You want that communion. All right? And he says, look, this has no cost. Right? You don't have to sacrifice anything. You don't have to give anything. Right? It has no cost, at no cost to you. Right? But it has a release from cost. It cost us the awareness of our relationship with God to believe that we were separated from God. So we get released from that cost. Right? And we come to remember our relationship with our Father. Paragraph 5, he says, you have paid very dearly for your illusions, and nothing you have paid for brought you peace. Are you not glad that heaven cannot be sacrificed, and sacrifice cannot be asked of you? There is no obstacle that you can place before our union, for in your holy relationship I am there already. We will surmount all obstacles together, for we stand within the gates and not outside. How easily the gates are opened from within, to let peace through, to bless the tired world. Can it be difficult for us to walk past barriers together? When you have joined the limitless, the end of guilt is in your hands to give. Would you stop now to look for guilt in your brother? Okay. It says you've paid very dearly for these illusions. You've paid very dearly for the illusion that you could be separated from your Father. And nothing that you paid for, nothing that you bought, has brought you peace. And we're talking about lasting peace, eternal peace. Right? The peace that passes all understanding. Right? He says, you've paid very dearly for that. He says, aren't you glad that heaven can't be sacrificed? In other words, the separation cannot be real. So aren't you happy? You can't be separate from God. All right? The pain is over if you accept that. Okay? He says, there is no obstacle that can place before our union, that you could place before our union. For in your holy relationship, I am there already. So in my holy relationships, right, I take that special relationship, that special love, a special hate, and I ask, help me to see it correctly. Because special love, I'm dependent on it. Oh, I can't be peaceful if I don't have it this way, right? You know, whatever. The minute he doesn't take out the garbage, it's over. You know, the minute, you know, she doesn't tell me how much she loves me, it's over. You know, so that's a special love relationship, and it can very easily turn into special hate. Right? You can notice that in your own lives. But he says, but in your holy relationship, when I take that relationship and I say, I'm willing to see correctly, I'm willing to see the other, I'm willing to see the truth in them. Right? He says, in that relationship, I'm there already. Right? So Jesus is there already. Okay? And we will surmount all the obstacles together. For we stand within the gates, not outside. Right? We stand within the gates of heaven, not outside. And he says, and how easily the gates are opened from within. Right? To let peace through, to bless the tired world. Okay. Can it be difficult for us to walk past barriers together? Right? Is it difficult to walk past these barriers together when you have joined with the limitless? Right? You join with the limitless in your mind. He says, what barriers could there be? All right. He says, can it be difficult to walk past the barriers together when you have joined the limitless? The end of guilt is in your hands to give. All right. He says, the end of guilt is in your hands to give. I'm willing to see the truth. Would you stop now to look for guilt in your brother? All right. Would you stop now to look for guilt in your brother? All right. Because you look for guilt in your brother, you're going to find it in yourself. All right. And we do that. So when you find yourself doing it, you can ask yourself that question. Do I want to find guilt in my brother when I have the power to let peace extend? Right? The end of guilt is in your hands to give. All right? Paragraph 6. Let me be to you the symbol of the end of guilt, and look upon your brother as you would look upon me. Forgive me all the sins you think the Son of God committed. And in the light of your forgiveness, he will remember who he is and forget what never was. I ask your forgiveness, for if you are guilty, so must I be. But if I surmounted guilt and overcame the world, you were with me. Would you see in me the symbol of guilt or the end of guilt? Remembering that I signify to you, that what I signify to you, you see within yourself. Okay? Jesus says, what I signify to you, you see within yourself. All right? So what some of the things we see in Jesus? All right? Oh, he was a separate individual. He was different than me. Right? And, you know, he was sent to atone for my sins. Right? So he had to be guilty of something. Right? He says, look, that's all part of the illusion. Right? Forgive me all the sins you think the Son of God committed. Right? Because I'm the same as you. Right? You think you separated from God. Right? And he says, and your brother too. He goes, let me help you with that. Right? Let me help you see your brother and yourself correctly. And let me help you see me correctly, Jesus says. Right? And in the light of your forgiveness, he will remember who he is and forget what never was. All right? So in the light of forgiveness, you and your brother remember who they are. And you forget what never was, which is the separation. The separation never happened. Okay? And once again, on a, as Ken would say, a level 2 perception of things, you know, in the world here, our brother, the other person or place or thing, doesn't necessarily change their act. They don't change their habits necessarily. They keep doing what they do. But we see them correctly now. We don't need to project guilt onto them. And since minds are joined, the guilt is not there. We're just waiting for it to reverberate and rise up in their mind on this level. All righty. So he says, Jesus says, let me be the end. Let me be the symbol of the end of guilt. And look upon your brother as you would look upon me. All right. Paragraph 7. From your holy relationship, truth proclaims the truth, and love looks on itself. Salvation flows from deep within the home you offered to my Father and to me. And we are there together in the quiet communion in which the Father and the Son are joined. O come ye faithful to the holy union of the Father and the Son in you, and keep you not apart from what is offered you, in gratitude for giving peace its home in heaven. Send forth to all the joyous message of the end of guilt, and all the world will answer. Think of your happiness as everyone offers you witness of the end of guilt and shows you that its power is gone forever. Where can guilt be when the belief in sin is gone? And where is death when its great advocate is heard no more? All right? This paragraph is almost like a rising of spirit, an exaltation, right? It's like the horns in the symphony getting up to proclaim another movement. All right? He says, from your holy relationship, right, truth proclaims the truth. It just issues forth. And love looks on itself. All right? You remember who you are. Salvation flows from deep within the home you offered to my Father and me, in the mind. All right? And we are there together in quiet communion in which the Father and the Son are joined. And he uses the words from that hymn in Christmas time. O come, all ye faithful. All right, Adeste Fidelis, as we used to say. He says, O come, ye faithful, to the holy union of the Father and the Son in you. All right, so let everyone come to the union of the Father and the Son. All right, send forth to all the joyous message of the end of guilt. Send forth that joyous message of the end of guilt, and the world will answer. Think of your happiness as everyone offers you witness to the end of sin and shows you that its power is gone forever. Where can guilt be when the belief in sin is gone? So the belief in the separation is gone. Where is guilt? Where could it be? It's non-existent. When the belief in the separation is gone. All right? And where is death when its great advocate is heard no more? So where is death when the ego thought system, the thought of separation, right? It's gone. So where is death? It's gone. And then in paragraph 8, he goes, "Forgive me your illusions and release me from punishment for what I have not done. So will you learn the freedom that I taught by teaching freedom to your brother, and so releasing me. I am within your holy relationship, yet you would imprison me behind the obstacles you raised to freedom and bar my way to you. Yet it is not possible to keep away one who is already there. And in him it is possible that our communion, where we are joined already, will be the focus of the new perception that will bring light to all the world contained in you." All right? The focus of the new perception of the world contained in you. Right? He says it's not possible to keep me away, he says. I'm already there. All right? I'm just waiting for you to call me. Just waiting for you to ask me to rise up and accompany you through these obstacles. So he goes, forgive me your illusions and release me from punishment for what I have not done. All right, and let's forgive everyone their illusions. Forgive Jesus the illusion we have that he's separate. He was, and we think he was a special person, so we have to, well, he's better than me, So there has to be some resentment. All right? He goes, forgive me for what I haven't done. And he hasn't separated from God, neither of you. All right? He's not separate from you. All right? And he says that the world, the focus of the new perception that will bring light to all the world is contained in you. All right? It's just a pep talk, not a burden. All right? It's just reminding you that you can extend peace to the entire world. So let's go to another little subsection. The lowercase I, right? So it's called the attraction of pain. All right, speaking of which, I'm going to take a sip here. Okay. So he says, the attraction of pain. Your little part is but to give the Holy Spirit the whole idea of sacrifice, and to accept the peace he gives instead, without the limits that would hold its extension back, and so would limit your awareness of it. For what he gives must be extended if you would have its limitless power, and use it for the Son of God's release. It is not this you would be rid of, and having it, you cannot limit it. If peace is homeless, so are you, and so am I. And he who is our home is homeless with us. Is this your wish? Would you forever be a wanderer in search of peace? Would you invest your hope of peace and happiness in what must fail? So he goes, would you invest your hope of peace, right, in what must fail. All right? Would you put all your chips on number 2? All right? He says, what, and it must fail, the body, form, the ego. He says, would you invest everything in that? All right? And would you invest your hope of peace and happiness in what must fail? Oh, my peace and happiness, I'll get it right here in the body, in form, whatever form I can get. All right? In the ego thought system, in the thought of separation. So he says, would you invest all your hope and peace in that? All right? So he says, your little part is but to give the Holy Spirit, the whole idea of sacrifice. So give it to the Holy Spirit. You know, even if you think, that's what he's doing, is you think it's a sacrifice, all right? To give up things that are in form, say. And nobody's asking you to be an ascetic, all right? You know, nobody's asking you to, you know, live on a, you know, in a little room with, you know, a bed and a lamp and, you know, one knife, one fork, and a spoon. You know, and you want to have a garden, but you say, no, one flower is enough. He says, you don't have to, that's not what we're talking about. It says you give up the whole idea of sacrifice. All right? Just give it to the Holy Spirit. Every time you think that you have to sacrifice something, come to the Holy Spirit and just ask for clarification. Help me to see it correctly. All right? So he says, give it to the Holy Spirit and accept the peace that he gives instead. Without the limits that would hold back its extension. All right, so nobody's asking you to, you know, deny your body or punish it or anything. It's not that. It's just notice. Just notice what you think your body needs, what you think you need for security or pleasure or happiness or whatever. Just come in for a second opinion. Ask the Holy Spirit, help me to see it correctly. Right? So, let's see. For what he gives must be extended. So the peace must be extended. So it's not this that you would be rid of. And having it, so he says, you don't want to be rid of peace. And once you start to realize you have it, you want to extend it. All right? So, let's see, and he who is our home is homeless with us if you try to get rid of it. All right? So, he says, would you forever be a wanderer in search of peace? He says, I'm telling you where to find it. All right? You find it in your mind. All right? Let's go to paragraph 10. Faith in the eternal is always justified, for the eternal is forever kind, infinite in its patience, and wholly loving. It will accept you wholly and give you peace, for it can unite only with what already is at peace in you, immortal as itself. The body can bring you neither peace nor turmoil, neither joy nor pain. It is a means, not an end. It has no purpose of itself, but only what is given to it. The body will seem to be whatever is the means for reaching the goal that you assign to it. Only the mind can set a purpose, and only the mind can see the means for its accomplishment and justify its use. Peace and guilt are both conditions of the mind to be attained, and these conditions are the home of the emotion that calls them forth, and therefore is compatible with them. So peace and guilt are both conditions of the mind to be attained, all right? And they are dependent on the emotion that calls them forth. All right? So fear will call upon guilt, all right? And love will call upon peace. All right? Those are the only two emotions, love and fear, all right? And which one we choose will lead us to a certain outcome, the guilt or the peace, all right? And faith in the eternal is always justified, all right? For the eternal is forever kind, infinite in its patience, and wholly loving. It will accept you wholly and give you peace. So the eternal that is in your mind, that is part of who you are, will always accept you. No judgments. It will accept you wholly. Okay? Think about that. It will never reject you. It will never tell you, go away. Go away until you're purified. You can always come to the eternal. And the eternal is in your mind. Right? Because it's infinite in its patience and wholly loving. Yet it can unite only with what already is at peace in you. Right? So the eternal can unite only what is in peace in you. So when we come to the right mind and we ask, help me to see, I'm willing to see the truth, in that moment we are at peace. No matter how brief the moment is, we're the ones that tick off time. You are at peace and the eternal unites with you. Okay? So the body can bring you neither peace nor turmoil, he says. Right? It only does what you want it to do. Right? It is a means, not an end. It has no purpose of itself, but only what is given to it. The body will seem to be whatever is the means for reaching the goal that you assign to it. Okay? Everybody's got goals. You know, think of it, so many, you know, you sit down for that job interview, what are your goals? You know? If you were to tell them that my goal is to attain peace of mind, you know, they might politely finish the interview and never contact you again. You know, they'll ghost you, as they say. Right? But if you have these ego goals, like, you know, I want to help the company grow, I want to, you know, want to do $1 million in sales, you know, and my little cat has joined me, so that's why I'm reaching down here to give her scratches, her massage. All right? She is a reflection of love in the world. Okay. Paragraph E11. I have a big star next to this, must be important. But think you which it is that is compatible with you. Here is your choice, and it is free. But all that lies in it will come with it. And what you think you are can never be apart from it. The body is the great seeming betrayer of faith. In it lies disillusionment and the seeds of faithlessness, but only if you ask of it what it cannot give. Peace. Can your mistake be reasonable grounds for depression and disillusionment, and for retaliative attack on what you think has failed you? Right? Use not your error as the justification for your faithlessness. You have not sinned, but you have been mistaken in what is faithful. And the correction of your mistake will give you grounds for faith. All right? So he says, look, you put all your, as they say, put all your eggs in one basket, right? You put all your eggs in that basket, the ego, the body. All right? He says the body is the seeming betrayer of faith. And he goes, in the body lies disillusionment. All right? You'll always be unhappy, eventually. And the seeds of faithlessness, but only if you ask of it what it cannot give. All right, so all these disappointments come if you ask of it what it cannot give, which is the peace that passes all understanding. Okay? The union with the Father. Right? The communion with yourself. Right? He says, look, you made a mistake. He says, can your mistake be reasonable grounds for depression and disillusionment? Right? For retaliative attack on what you think has failed you? For a retaliative attack on your body, right? You're going to start hating your body and doing silly things to it, or even thinking silly things about it. You're attacking your body, right? I'm not good enough. I wasn't tall enough to be a model. I wasn't, my arm blew out. I couldn't throw to second base. I couldn't play for the Yankees. He says, so are you going to use that for depression and disillusionment and for retaliative attack on what you think has failed you? He says, use not your error as the justification for your faithlessness. Right? Don't let what you think are failures of the body justify, your belief in separation and, oh, I'm no good. I'm no good. There's something wrong with me. He goes, don't use it for, reinforcement of faithlessness, which is aligning ourselves with the ego thought system. Right? He says, look, you haven't sinned. Right? You haven't left your home in heaven. You have not sinned, but you have been mistaken. That's all. You've just been mistaken in what is faithful. You made a mistake. You thought being faithful to the ego thought system was the way to go. And the correction of your mistake will give you grounds for faith. All right? The correction of our mistakes, and we do it piecemeal. We bring these things to the Holy Spirit. Help me to see correctly. Help me change my perception of this, whatever words you want to use. All right? I want to see through the eyes of truth. I want to see the world correctly. All right? All righty. My little kitty is blinking at me. That's why I had to stop. Blinking is a little kiss from your cat when they blink. So he says, what you think is a sin is a mistake, and it can be corrected. All right. He says, and the correction of your mistake will give you grounds for faith. it will reinforce your coming to the Holy Spirit. And that's the only place you'll want to be, is in the mind with the Holy Spirit and with Jesus. And eventually we rejoin the Father. All right? Okay. Paragraph 12. It is impossible to seek for pleasure through the body and not find pain. It is essential that this relationship be understood, for it is one the ego sees as proof of sin. It is not really punitive at all. It is but the inevitable result of equating yourself with the body, which is the invitation to pain. For it invites fear to enter and become your purpose. The attraction of guilt must enter with it. And whatever fear directs the body to do is therefore painful. It will share the pain of all illusions, and the illusion of pleasure will be the same as pain. All right? All right? And once again, he's not telling you to, sacrifice all ideas of what's, don't have ice cream, don't have sex. He's not saying that. All right? Just notice that there's two sides to the coin. All right? We're investing everything in the body. All right? And he says ultimately the body has to bring you pain because it's the manifestation of separation from God. All right? That's all. He's not telling you to give up anything. I guess he's asking you just to give up and ask for a clarification on my belief that the body is going to give me what I need. Could you help me with that? All right? And then your life becomes a classroom. All right? And it's more enjoyable as a classroom. Even the hard parts. All right? Even the most painful parts become a classroom. Help me to see this correctly. Help me to see through the eyes of peace and truth. All right? So, he says the ego tells you the body is proof that you separated, okay? And pain is the inevitable result of equating yourself with the body. Right? For it invites fear to enter and become your purpose. Right? The attraction of guilt must enter with it. And whatever fear directs the body to do is therefore painful. Right? So we have this underlying fear. Even if it's cleverly disguised and repressed as, he really has a need to achieve, she's a real go-getter, what is motivating these highly achieved, these people that achieve so much, and the rest of us, we have achievements, what is motivating that? Right? I mean, if you look closely enough, I think what motivates it is fear. Okay, so even for the most successful people, right? And once again, I'm not judging successful people. I'm just saying, just notice. Notice what motivates the human condition, what motivates human beings. That's all. No judgment. Just notice. It becomes very interesting, right? It becomes very interesting, right? Goosebump interesting, right? Excuse me. So, he says in the last sentence in paragraph 12, the body, it will share the pain of all illusions, and the illusion of pleasure will be the same as pain. Paragraph 13. Is not this inevitable? Under fear's orders, the body will pursue guilt, serving its master, whose attraction to guilt remains the whole illusion of its existence. This, then, is the attraction of pain. Ruled by this perception, the body becomes the servant of pain, seeking it dutifully and obeying the idea that pain is pleasure. It is the idea that underlies all of the ego's heavy investment in the body. And it is this insane relationship that it keeps hidden and yet feeds upon. To you, it teaches that the body's pleasure is happiness. Yet to itself, it whispers it is death. So, he says, under fear's orders, the body will pursue guilt. All right, but it doesn't let us know that. All right, it's all repressed, so to speak. All right, the ego keeps telling us, oh, here's where you're going to get your pleasure. Here's when you're going to get your security. Here's when you're going to get your happiness. All right? All right. So to you, it teaches that the body's pleasure is happiness. All right? But to itself, the ego reminds itself, it is death. All right? And it's death on two levels, as Jesus would say. To believe that you're separated from God is, he says, there's no life outside of heaven. All right? So that's a death, metaphorically speaking, metaphysically speaking. All right? And in the body, no matter how much pleasure we get, ultimately there's death. Okay? I remember getting really upset in like the 8th grade or something. That poem that said, "The paths of glory lead but to the grave." I said, wow, jeez. I'm sorry, I'm only 12. Did I have to hear that? But it was good for me eventually, because that's what Jesus is telling us, right? But he says, don't take it too seriously, right? I took it too seriously in 8th grade, So, the ego teaches you that pleasure is happiness, but to itself, the secret dreams that it's death. Okay? Paragraph 14. Why should the body be anything to you? Certainly, what it is made of is not precious. And just as certainly, it has no feeling. It transmits to you the feelings that you want. Like any communication medium, the body receives and sends messages that it is given. It has no feeling for them. All of the feeling with which they are invested is given by the sender and the receiver. The ego and the Holy Spirit both recognize this, and both also recognize that here the sender and the receiver are the same. The Holy Spirit tells you this with joy. The ego hides it, for it would keep you unaware of it. Who would send messages of hate and attack if he but understood he sends them to himself? Who would accuse, make guilty, and condemn himself? Right? So the ego doesn't let you know that there's only oneness. If I'm condemning him, I'm condemning me. Because if I'm in my condemnation says, bottom line, you're separated from God. There's something wrong with you. You're a sinner. All right? And he says the sender of that message is the same as the receiver. All right? He says, but the ego doesn't tell you that. says the Holy Spirit tells you that with great joy, because if I'm extending peace and love and understanding and innocence and the idea that you never left your Father, says, I'm sending that out and I'm receiving that. All right? So the Holy Spirit tells you that with joy, that sender and receiver are the same. There is no separation. All right? So, why should the body be anything to you? All right? It transmits to you the feelings that you want. All right? Why would I want this? Why would I want this? You know, people say that to me all the time. What do you mean? Why would I want this? You know, you try to be as kind and loving as you can, but the ego wants whatever that is, if it's upsetting you, right? Because it's proving to you that you're separate from God, right? You're suffering, you know? Like Edward G. Robinson said to Moses, where's your God now, Moses? But the ego would have you think that. Why would I choose this? Right? Well, I'll tell you why. Because the purpose of the body and the purpose of this, all this pain and aggravation and sadness and loss, and this is the purpose is to prove to you that you did it. You separated from God. So Jesus tells us, bring all that. Bring all those things that you think are happening. Bring them to me and ask me. Help me to see these things through the eyes of peace, through the eyes of love, right? And that will be the way I will see things, right? Not that everything is going to be made better in form, but your perception, your interpretation of what's going on, what's happening to you, what's happening to them, your interpretation will be different. It will contain peace, okay? So, who would send messages of hatred and attack if he would understood he sends them to himself? Who would accuse, make guilty, and condemn himself if you realized you were doing it yourself? 15. The ego's messages are always sent away from you in the belief that for your message of attack and guilt will someone other than you suffer. And even if you suffer, yet someone else will suffer more. The great deceiver recognizes that this is not so, but as the enemy of peace, it urges you to send out all your messages of hate and free yourself, and to convince you that this is possible. It bids the body search for pain and attack upon another, calling it pleasure and offering it to you as freedom from attack. All right, once again, a nice, or not so nice, description of the idea of projection. You know, we immediately experience guilt the moment we believed we separated from God. Right? And in order to get rid of that guilt, we projected and made up this world. The mind is very powerful, remember. All right? So we have this illusion, this dream. And the ego continues to counsel us. The ego thought system, right, tells us you want to get rid of the guilt, you put it out there. Right? It says the ego's messages are always sent away from you in the belief that for your message of attack, right, your projection of guilt, will someone else other than you suffer. Right? And even if you suffer, yet someone else will suffer more. So, that's good. The great deceiver recognizes that this is not so. So the ego thought system knows it's not so. Right? But But as the enemy of peace, the ego doesn't want peace because it will disappear. As the enemy of peace, it urges you to send out all your messages of hate and free yourself. All right? Free yourself from that self-hatred, right? From that guilt. Put it over there. Put it on him. Put it on her. And to convince you that this is possible, it bids the body search for pain and attack upon another, calling it pleasure and offering it to you as freedom from attack. All right? Constantly projecting. That's what the purpose of this world, right, is to convince us we separated and to have a lot of objects onto which we can project our guilt. So in paragraph 16, Jesus says, "Hear not its madness, and believe not the impossible is true." So don't hear the madness of the ego telling you, here, get rid of your guilt, throw it over there. And he says, and believe not that the impossible is true. The impossible is that you separated from God. He says, don't believe that. He says, believe not that the impossible is true. Right? And the way we get to believing not that the impossible is true is by continually bringing things to our right mind and asking for clarification. Help me to see correctly. Right? Eventually, it will dawn on us, right, that separation is not possible. And believe me, the happiness will be eternal. It will be infinite. Forget not that the ego has dedicated the body to the goal of sin, right, separation, and places in it all its faith that this can be accomplished. Its sad disciples chant the body's praise continually in solemn separation of the ego's rule. Not one but must believe that yielding to the attraction of guilt is the escape from pain. No one but must regard himself, the body as himself, without which he would die, and yet within which is his death equally inevitable. Right? So this is the body. Forget not that the ego has dedicated the body to the goal of sin, the goal of separation, the goal of convincing us that we're separate. All right? And it places all its faith that this can be accomplished. All right? And Jesus calls it, the people who adhere to that, it's sad disciples. Right? It's sad disciples chant the body's praise continually in solemn celebration of the ego's rule. He says, not one but must believe that yielding to the attraction of guilt is the escape from pain. So he says, anybody who's truly engaged in the body, he says, you have to believe that projecting the guilt is the way to get rid of pain. Right? And he says, not one but must regard the body as himself. This is who I am. Right? Without which he would die. And yet, within which is his death equally inevitable. He says, without the body, I'm going to die. But even with the body, you're going to die. All right? It's kind of crazy. Paragraph 17. It is not given to the ego's disciples to realize that they have dedicated themselves to death. Freedom is offered them, but they have not accepted it. And what is offered must also be received to be truly given. For the Holy Spirit, too, is a communication medium, receiving from the Father and offering his messages unto the Son. Like the ego, the Holy Spirit is both the sender and the receiver. For what is sent through him returns to him, seeking itself along the way, and finding what it seeks. So does the ego find the death it seeks, returning it to you. Right? He says, but the Holy Spirit too is a communication medium. Right? The Holy Spirit receives communication from the Creator, from the Father. And he offers those messages to you, the Son. Right? So he says, like the ego, the Holy Spirit is both the sender and the receiver. Right? So you are that. Right? When you're in the right mind, you are that. You are that memory of who you are. Right? The sender and the receiver. Okay? For what is sent through him returns to him, seeking itself along the way and finding what it seeks. So you will find peace if you seek for peace. If your goal is peace, you will find it. But so does the ego find the death that it seeks and returns it to you. All right? And he says, so, that's the attraction of pain is the attraction and the belief of separation. So if I'm in pain, I'm proving to myself that not only is the body real, but separation is real. Right? And that's, the second obstacle to peace. The belief that the body is valuable for what it offers. Right? And the body only offers death, actually. I hate to ruin your day, but right? But we can find happiness and peace by continually asking, help me to see correctly. All right? And thus ends the second obstacle to peace. All right? Without further ado is a different word. So without further ado, we will leave it there, and hopefully we'll see you in the next session. I look forward to it, and thanks for listening. Thanks for helping me read the course. All righty then.